I've been talking a bunch lately about the polarized amnesia that seems to happen after a person quits drinking or after they bounce back from a slip or relapse. When they first quit, the memories of the binge or the period of alcohol excessive consumption, it's fresh in mind, right? The guilt, the shame, the withdrawal potentially, physical and psychological withdrawal symptoms, acute, post acute. So those are all either happening or still fresh in mind from very recently happening. Okay. Then, as time goes on, not necessarily the days, but the weeks, as the weeks go on, and then as the months go on, if it hasn't happened in weeks, as the months go on, there can be a selective polarized amnesia. Mhm. SPA, selective polarized amnesia. Part of this has to do with something that I had learned about, in early addiction recovery. I think the physiology chapter of my schooling when we covered alcohol, and I think in one of my mom's natural living books too on alcohol section I read about this as well. But there's a B vitamin deficiency that can happen with alcohol excessive consumption that can cause people to have like amnesia or memory loss. And alcohol creates so many negative changes to the brain. But that's a big one right there. That's substantial. So part of it could be due to that in some way, but part of it is also just our natural innate human wiring system, which is that we intrinsically move towards pleasure and we intrinsically move away from pain. And our memory, the further we get away from something in our life, the further into the future, the less of the emotional activation we get from thinking about said memory. So if someone's going through massive grief right after something bad happens and they lose someone or something in their life, versus 20 years afterwards, the grief is, almost always much, much, much lower, probably always much lower. Never goes away if it's a big loss, but much lower. So the same thing can happen with when you quit drinking. The further you get away from it, the more you're able to, do your life and not drink, the more you can think, okay, I got this. And so the protective measures one can take at the beginning to stay really hyper focused on not drinking, not drinking. Slowly but surely, or quickly but surely, they can start to all fall by the wayside. The protective measures, the fear of alcohol, the defense systems, the pro recovery habits, the full measuring on a day to day basis consistently of implementation and utilization of a person's subjective recovery capital. And then they find themselves in a dinner party, a month after they quit drinking, 2 months after they quit drinking, a year after they quit drinking, 6 months after they quit drinking. The selective polarized amnesia has taken place. Someone offers them a drink. In that moment, there is no remembrance of their congruence, of their commitment that they wanted to stay alcohol free. And there's no powerful emotional memories of all the negative consequences and pain that alcohol has caused and is about to cause again. So that's forgotten, amnesia. And then the other polarity, the benefits of alcohol and the pleasure, the inability to moderate it doesn't come to mind. The negative consequences, the pain don't come to mind. Someone offers you the drink, you just take it, and either you drink it without thinking about it, or you think about it and you think, I got this. And usually the person will end up back to day one again with the end of binge, guilt, fear, shame, and anxiety, and potentially withdrawal symptoms too. So yeah, the way you can do this, have an easier time stopping alcohol and then staying stopped, is a combination of really two things. And this comes from The Art of War by Sun Tzu. This is a powerful strategy for addiction transcendence. And I'll give you an example from my own life too. When I was trying to overcome alcohol addiction, opioid addiction at another time, quitting cigarettes, whatever it was, when I was trying to quit these substances, these behaviors, addictive, fun in the moment, or stress reducing, pleasure inducing in the moment, but destructive over the long term for myself and unfortunately others too at some points. I was trying to beat addiction, heal from it, without much self knowledge, with very little self knowledge, in fact, with almost no self knowledge. And I had almost no knowledge about addiction or about even what these substances did to me inside. So, according to Sun Tzu in The Art of War, that would be like an army. Let's go back into the year 1200 right now. And you have two very primal armies with crude weapons, swords and axes and shields and spears. But they're formidable armies with thousands of people. One army has 2,000 people. The other army has 2,000 people. And they both have, the warriors are about equal. But one army, one tribe, demolishes the other one, even though it was equal numbers and equal strength, skills of fighting, stabbing, killing, beheading, decapitating, just hacking pieces of flesh, of matter everywhere, just matter, just slicing matter, which is 99.99% empty space energy. But why'd that happen? Well, because they read The Art of War. They learned from Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu said that imagine going into a battle. You don't know anything about the enemy, no knowledge of the enemy. So you don't know their strengths. You don't know their weaknesses. You don't know how they operate. You're totally in the dark. We talked about clarity earlier. You have confusion, ignorance. Also, this army doesn't even know the captain of this army was a brand new one because the old one got kidnapped and then he got beheaded, let's say. So this new guy was not only didn't know the army very well, but he didn't have time to learn it because the battle ensued the next day. So the guy commanding the army didn't know his army's strengths and weaknesses. He didn't know thyself. And he didn't know the enemy. So they got demolished. The other ones, they had immense self-knowledge about their strengths, their weaknesses, all the little subtleties and nuances about their army self-totality. And they had equal knowledge, knowing, gnosis of the enemy and their strengths, weaknesses, subtleties, nuances. That's the same thing when I was trying to overcome addiction without self-knowledge or knowledge of the enemy addiction. I was getting decapitated, speared in the stomach, chopped up into pieces. And it was futile. Futile, just totally futile. So the more you learn self-knowledge and the more you learn about alcohol use disorder, treatments, recovery, holistic, like you're doing right now, then it's just a matter of time, as long as you stick with it. And the definition of commitment is very relevant for quitting drinking and for staying alcohol-free. Commitment, trust, faithfulness, vow, VOW, morals, agreement, allegiance, pledge, loyalty, values, pact, PACT, guarantee, fidelity, true, dedicate, pledge, value, trust, commit, faithful, loyalty, core, dedication, allegiance. So you get the drift. You've heard of those commitment rings before, where people commit to getting engaged. And, an engagement ring is a commitment. So we have these types of things in our society where not only can we commit to somebody and do a ceremony, but we can even get the government, if we so wish, involved as a third party. And some people even get God involved as overlooking the commitment too. And that can be very, very powerful. A lot of times people don't do necessarily some type of commitment ceremony when it comes to quitting their alcohol habit. Commitment means putting all of your resources behind that which you have chosen. It means no holding back, no waiting to see if something or someone better will come along. It means no more whining or complaining about the obstacles. It means no more waiting for someone else to do it for you. Commitment is not passive, complacent, or hopeful. It is active and determined. It means getting out and making it happen. It means putting 100% of you on the line and going for what you want. When you are truly committed, nothing will get in your way. No reason or excuse can stop you. When you are committed to someone or something, there is no more doubt or confusion. You have direction, focus, and purpose. Commitment enables you to have freedom and power. Commitment means you back yourself 100%. It means you stand behind your choices unwaveringly. Commitment means claiming your power to manifest what you want in your life. Commitment ultimately means being totally committed to you. I have two new one-on-one clients, and one of them's 7 days alcohol free, and she's feeling so much better already. And one of them's only 2 days alcohol free, and the same for him. They're both obliger tendencies, which we're going to talk about coming up. And obligers really need external accountability to fulfill their internal goals for themselves. Today, I found something fantastic in preparation for a session with a new obliger client. So there's 4 psychological tendency types. An opioid addicted client, maybe 10 or 9 years ago, probably 9 years ago, told me about the 4 tendencies. He said, have you heard about the 4 tendencies? I said, no, what's that? He said, game changer for your coaching, I promise. All right, the 4 tendencies. This has to do with one aspect of your personality. That is how you respond to inner and outer expectations. There's 4 different tendency types. Usually people have a primary, a very dominant type. They can tip to another subtype too. So the obliger tendency is the largest percentage of the human population. Their flaw is that they are more focused on living up to the expectations of others, but don't focus on their own goals. Their biggest strength is that others know they can rely on them, so they make great leaders and team members. They readily respond to external expectations, but not internal expectations. They meet deadlines and follow through for bosses, colleagues, spouses, and so on, like coaches, doctors, kids, friends, but don't follow through on things they want to do for themselves, like quit drinking, stay quit, lose weight, start a business, go to the gym more, change their diet. No matter how important it is to them, obligers almost always fail to complete the task. Obligers have to learn how to create outside accountability that works for them. People with the obliger tendency make up the largest tendency for both men and women. Furthermore, obligers are most likely to wish they were a different tendency. Rubin suggests, she's the author, Gretchen Rubin, suggests this might be because the other tendencies cause others frustration, but are generally satisfied with themselves. Whereas obligers cause themselves frustration. They beat themselves up about meeting others' expectations, but not their own. According to Gretchen, obligers often frequently misdiagnose their issues as well. Because they can meet external expectations easily, they assume that laziness or self-sacrifice causes them not to meet their own internal expectations. And it doesn't help that other tendencies, who have an easier time doing what they want to do and resisting the expectations of others, tend to judge obligers for their incapability to meet their own internal expectations. People with the obliger tendency type have the most to gain from learning about their tendency and using it to their advantage. Once they can figure out how to create external accountability that works for them, so there's 2 parts to the accountability. Number 1, that it's external. They're not holding themselves accountable. Someone or some other people are, and it has to work for them with that caveat. They will find it much easier once they do that, create external accountability that also works for them, which can take some testing and trying out, fitting on. They will find it much easier to start to do the things for themselves and build a happier life. Like the 2 recent new one-on-one obliger clients, 2 days alcohol free with external accountability with me as their coach, and the Fit Recovery 2.0 system too and group. But both of them are in time zones and have lifestyles where these groups are really, really hard to make. So these groups are great external accountability for a lot of people. For some people, they're not. And for some people that can't do the live ones, the replays, they don't have a real person in live, present moment, actual life holding them accountable. So very important, these distinctions.